Hey, and welcome to this week's Photography Explained Photo Review Club live stream. You will probably see some acne on my head, and that's because I've been working crazy hard on something which I'll touch on just before we get into the training. And so I think I've just completely over-egged the amount of work that I'm capable of doing. So I'm slightly burnt out, but really excited to. And again, we'll just get through this and we'll get onto the photo reviews in a second. But if you would like to take the best photo that is absolutely possible for you to take within the next 6 weeks and then receive a fine art gallery level print of that said photo, then you should check out our new training program. You can find there'll be a link below this video, but photographyexplained.com/mastery will take you to the correct page. And that is exactly what we're doing. 6-week live training, live session with me covering a specific element of landscape photography on the beginning of the week, and then towards the middle end of the week there's going to be a live Q&A session with me as well, that over the course of 6 weeks with the goal of creating the best landscape photo that you've ever taken. And then I will get we'll do it here, we can do it live. That's a good idea. We will do these live, we'll get these printed live, perhaps on a different live stream in the diary, and we'll run through everyone's photos, celebrate them, and print them off and get them shipped out. So you'll end the training with the best photo that you've ever taken, landscape photo you've ever taken, that you can then proudly hang on your wall and at home and show it off to your friends and family. So again, the page is photographyexplained.com/mastery. The reason why I'm talking about it is that there's only a handful of places left. There was only a handful of places in the first instance because we're running this for the first time. We've not done live training before, so this is all kind of new to us and exciting. But again, I've put everything into this training at this point. It's going to be incredible. Everyone's going to get an amazing set of images out of it, and hopefully have an amazing time running through the training as well. So yeah, here's the page. And what we're looking for is essentially these kind of transformations. So if your photos look like the one on the left here right now, and you'd like them to look more like my photography on the right, or in this instance, if your photos look like this and you want it to look more like that, then check it out. This is obviously live on Wednesday afternoon, UK time. I don't know if there's going to be any spaces left by the end of the week. That's where we're at with things. Loads of people are excited to jump into it. And so, again, this is a genuine, no kind of marketing nonsense. There is literally a handful of spaces because I want to make sure that this first cohort of photographers that go through the program just have the best time and get the best results. So, with that said, there'll be a link all over the description. If you're on the email list, you've had an email about this already, but make sure that if you are interested, you get stuck into it so you don't miss out. Because it's a 6-week program, and so you won't be able to for at least 6 weeks, and then I'll probably have a couple of weeks off after I do the training at minimum to do just to refresh myself, but also to do a bit of my own photography. So with that said, this is the Facebook group that we're all kind of tied to here. This is where we're going to be running through some images from. Again, this is linked, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is linked in the video description. We're nearly at 2,000 members. Just a bit of housekeeping with the Facebook group. I am going to be adding some rules to the Facebook group. I'm going to be moderating more posts. I'm going to be spending more time in here moving forward to really double down on this. This has turned out to be like a really cool thing. It wasn't accidental. We wanted to build this Facebook group out, but it's been grown way faster. There's way more activity than I ever imagined, and it's really cool going back and forth with views all in the comments and on these live streams. So as of tomorrow morning, I've got it in my calendar to double down on the Facebook group. So some rules are coming. Some of the rules will be, for example, here with Benzel, 1 image per post so that we can really get stuck into the image in the comments. When you put 3 or 4 images per post, the first thing is nobody comments on anything other than the first image because they don't want to click through a bunch of stuff to see the rest of the images that have been uploaded. But also your initial comment at the top of the post doesn't exist for each one of the images unless you viewed them as a whole. So that's going to be one of the rules. And then I think this is long term for the better, but this may annoy a few of you guys in the group and people watching this. We're shifting to fully landscape images. So sure, if there's some wildlife photos, I like looking at wildlife photos. That's not the end of the world. But the goal is that this, and Photography Explained as well, are really was shifting to double down on landscape photography specifically. It's what I care about, it's what I'm passionate about, and it's what we can, therefore, it's what we can do. It's how it's the topic of the genre of photography that we can create the best content within. So fine, post other stuff in here for the moment, next 24 hours, couple of days. I'll still give you feedback to these images. This is a lovely image that I would. You've had a bunch of feedback there as well, Damien. But yeah, moving forward, we are going all in on landscape. We're getting specific. We're specializing, and hopefully, we'll be able to build a much better platform and platform for you guys to get feedback and upgrade your skills moving forward as well. So, Seb says hi. Michael or Mikel says hi as well. There's a bunch of highs on Facebook. We have Peter, we have Rianne, we have Sarah or Sarah. I'm not sure how you pronounce your name. I apologize about that. And yeah, with that said, the stuff that I wanted to communicate over and done with, let's jump into reviewing some of your photos. So here we have April. So when I first looked at this, I was like, okay, obviously the color bounce is way, way off. But then, and this is the problem with having multiple photos per post, the color bounce is off on all of these images. And there's a lot of halation up in the top image, top of the image here, where the highlights are blowing out and causing fringing. So this is probably film. Unfortunately, April, because you've posted a bunch of images, not your fault. New rules apply as of tomorrow morning. We'll communicate that. I can't actually read what you've said about it, so I assume this is film. You got some nice, what looks like a legitimate vignette around the image, and you got some freaky colors going on. And so, what is interesting is I'm much less critical because it's shot on film than if you edited it like this. If you edited this shot or any of these shots, and you'd blown out the highlights and burnt the corners of the image into a vignette, and the colors were way off, and saturation was all wrecked on this side of the image here, I would be saying something's up. When it's on film, it's almost all forgiven. So I'm just going to give you feedback on composition here as opposed to the editing of the images. So it doesn't look like you've edited them. It looks like they come from film. So first off, what we've got here is a leading line that goes nowhere. It goes from right to left, straight out the frame. You've also got this tiny little leaf here, which, again, slightly more forgivable if we're shooting on film and we don't have a electronic viewfinder to look through. But what you're lacking is a subject, especially in this image. This image here, you kind of got a subject, which is this tree, but you got too much foreground going on. You basically need to think about a subject in your images. If you're doing an image like this, which is looks 35 mil perhaps, you want to start thinking about, is there a foreground, a midground, and a kind of background to the image? Because here you've just got foreground blending into midground, and then we can't see the background. In this previous image, you've got kind of a foreground and bland midground, and then nothing striking in the background. I think your horizon is slightly wonky there as well. But they're the things I'd be thinking about. You want to create images that have a point. These images, relatively aesthetically pleasing to look at because the colors are all crazy. I don't feel like there's a point to them. So that'd be my feedback for you, April. But I appreciate you posting. Cool. Here we have David Johnson, West Coast Beach, North Island, New Zealand. Very jealous. Very jealous. This is a really cool location. The perspective is almost weird here because you've managed to cut off the foreground rocks, like these essential rocks that would be closer to us, but you've included the foreground higher up rock, which juxtaposes these. I think that looks quite nice. You've got the leading lines of what are some kind of beach buggy or a car vehicle going across there. I think the main issue with this is the edit. And I'll throw it into Photoshop and we will take a look. And I'll see if I can explain. This is more, I think this has been an artistic choice with this image more than anything else. But it doesn't look real. These rocks don't look unrealistic. Apart from you see these greens here, just way too much contrast has been added to them. The greens up here look odd. It looks like sludge. It looks like toxic waste, which tells me again that the saturation has just been pulled way too far in one direction. But the main giveaway for this, because I don't even mind any of that really, again, stylistic choice. It almost looks like it's been painted. It's too much green. I think dial the green back is the main issue there. The thing that I think is a problem though is the ocean, because the ocean does not look like that, and so it immediately throws me off. So if we just throw it into camera raw, so that now within 3 seconds, just cooling the image slightly, just taking away a little bit of the green, perhaps. That to me becomes a much stronger image, and that's still stylized. You know, we could go a lot further with this and make the whites white, essentially. So I don't know if you didn't shoot it at golden hour and you're trying to put like a golden hour look on things, but to me, it doesn't always have to be accurate to your eye as to the day it was shot. But to me, taking the edge off things just a little bit there makes it feel I don't feel like my eyes are being bombarded with color, with texture, just quite as much. But I love the silhouettes of the two people. They are stood in the perfect place with these lines, leading lines. The leading lines sweep up, come across the image. There's nothing over here, which is fine because by the time you've got to one side of the image to the other, you've dwelled on this quite a long time because of the format of it. And then the other thing, I'd probably just be looking at the color mixer and reducing just some of the saturation of these greens. Just to basically, the greens are dragging me away from what is the subject, which is the middle of the frame here. And they're just a bit, to me, distracting. So again, artistic choice, stylistic choice. I appreciate it if you just want it to look, dare I say, slightly more cinematic, like a still from a film. But yeah, the only other thing I'd take a look at is, I don't know if this is due to the conditions. It just looks slightly odd to me that, like here, on, if I just put it back into Photoshop, I will use a pen to draw on it. Here and across here, you've got this kind of these white patches. Sometimes they just exist, depending on the conditions, but to me, they look a little bit artificial. It looks like you have masked this out potentially. And yeah, I'd take a look, especially that one. That one just distracts me. The others, sure, I'd maybe add some more. See how it's lighter here than it is at the top of these trees in the background? It's very unlikely that that was the case. These should all probably be the same color or the same lack of contrast or the same brightness, however you want to slice it up. And I think that would again become slightly less distracting, and that's what I'd be aiming for. But yeah, cool image. The composition's cool. I really enjoy it. I really appreciate you sharing it with us. Cool. All right, next photo. Here we have Jack, Jacek, Jack. Maybe butchering that, mate. I apologize. The issue is here, it's really frustrating to not be able to see the subject. Now, if you've got a banging silhouette and the silhouette itself is a pattern and a shape in and of itself, fine, no worries. But what you've got here is you just teased two buildings, which is the subject, and then there's just a massive space for our eye to shoot up and out of the frame towards the top left-hand corner. So what we need to do is, it's fine for these not to be in the center of the frame, but if I'm stood there, I'm probably moving further around to my left, obviously shooting further down. And again, it's fine if the subject is complete black and it's been completely kind of just the arse dropped out the colors, if the shape that it leaves is interesting. I don't know. I feel like there's trees behind these two buildings, and so you're not going to be able to silhouette them properly. And so maybe you want to just add a little bit of, so it's not completely black, so that we can see a little bit more intricacy. So we can see what we're looking at basically. So that would be the feedback for this one. Here we have Isaac. So I think a couple of things as a first glance. I quite like the shape. So quite like the shape. These people are a problem, unless they're like your family or something, and unless they are your family and you're trying to, and they're part, and it's a portrait and it's part of the shot, right? That's not done a very good job, has it? I would be trying to get rid of them the best I could. Fine. There we go. You can do a better job with a bit more time. And the thing that strikes me is I don't think we need this like sliver of sky at the top. Like, is that not the shot? No. I think if you were to, I think that's probably the shot, but I would want to be pointing down more. So from a perspective, the perspective, this ends up further away, so it gets smaller and smaller. It's still a little bit too wide there, and and then almost this tree almost becomes like a key part of the image. So something more like that, perhaps. That's what we're looking for. So you see how I've just cut the top of the frame as the pathway is going at an angle. And so, again, because of the perspective, we're seeing across the path. And so it looks thinner. And this tree here starts to become more interesting. So what I might do then is add a vignette around this tree just to see if we can drag a bit more attention towards that. This may not work. So add a mask, invert mask. So I think we're slightly, I butchered the path here, but you see where we're going with this. Now we've got this snaking path, and as my eye goes up through it, this tree has more contrast than with the darkness of the branch against the snow around it. And now there's a subject. There's almost a reason to. There's a reason for the image itself. The other thing is also, and this is a stylistic choice, but maybe this is me being an amateur photographer like you guys. Maybe there's a professional or someone who does a lot of black and white photography would have a different opinion on this. I typically like to push my black and white images either high key or low key. And in this one, there's quite a lot of dark here already, so we might want to just stretch this out, just stretch it out a bit more, just add a bit more contrast to it. Blowing out the highlights there a bunch, but just want to nudge. And this is the problem with snow, right? It's easy to blow out those highlights. But that's what I'd be looking more towards versus the original image, where again, these people, unless they're your friends and family, in which case it's a portrait rather than a landscape, and it's kind of cool. But I don't think we need this sliver at the top. And then as we've got the sliver, the path is wide because it's going away from us. And so it looks like this big, thick thing that just doesn't really go anywhere. Or it does go somewhere, but it's frustrating because we can't see where it's gone. Versus something more like this. The path is again sideways, so it's thinner, so it gives it more perspective, like it's gone further into the distance. And I think it's just more bold and graphic with this big S shape like that. And again, I'd be trying to do something with this tree. Maybe on the day I would be trying to position the height of the shot so that these branches aren't cutting over the walkway itself. But we kind of get get into the niggles there as opposed to the key elements of the image. But that's the kind of thing that I'd be looking at. I'd probably also brighten I mean, you can go about this in a much more sophisticated way than I'm just about to do it. But I'll be selecting a brush. I'd be increasing the highlight. Well, I've been increasing the shadows. I just brush a bit of brightness into, so there's again a bit more of a pop for the walkway itself, which you can barely tell. So yeah, I'll be brushing a bit more highlights into the walkway. Again, just basically increasing the contrast amongst the scene to guide the viewer's eye where we want them to go, as opposed to previously it was a bit more snapshotty rather than something with like artistic direction. So cool. Hopefully that helps. And we'll jump on to the next image. And in the chat, we have Michael. I think you've been in the chat before, mate. We have Rebecca on Facebook. So, yeah, anyone in the chat, if you want to say hello, please feel free. If you've got any comments on these images, throw the comments towards me. We can discuss them. If you've got any questions for me, obviously, I'm always happy to help, as long as it's somewhat photography related. I'll talk about whatever, but if we talk about something that isn't photography related, we're going to bore the rest of the audience. Cool. Right. Kathleen, first time posting here. I wanted to show a photo I took. Bit cropped and processed. The initial file is JPEG, not RAW. Photography is a hobby and total noob at post-processing. Using Affinity by Canva. If any of you guys watching this don't want to use Lightroom or Photoshop, Canva bought the Affinity suite of products a couple of years ago at this point, I guess, which I used at one point before I just thought I'd just suck it up and just buy as I probably should do, buy the kind of subscription to Adobe across their different products. And Canva have just re-released the Affinity suite, which is like a digital alternative to the Adobe products. They've just released them completely for free. They've had literally millions of downloads in days. And so if you want to get stuck into editing your photos and you don't want to pay the price for the Adobe suite, it is what it is. Ernst says hi in Greenland. Bet some good photography in Greenland. That's cool. So yes, I appreciate the inadvertent note for me to mention that there, Callum. Okay, so let's throw this into Photoshop. Let's take a look. So what is the image? It's not this graffiti on the left, I don't think. Unless you tell me otherwise. So the image is probably the fountain, right? So until you're like really high level, typically what we're aiming to do is just concentrating and focusing on, which is removing stuff that I wasn't skilled enough to work into the scene, removing it rather than just leaving lots of crap in there. So simplifying the image, we now get down to this. So I'm not saying it's the greatest image in the world, but I think that is a stronger image than the source material, which is this. So what do we want to do with this? The first thing that strikes me, which is just frustrating, is that this water is blue. It is cold. So immediately, I want to get that water the best we can and reduce the blues in there. Well, not reduce the blues in it, redo our color temperature so it's a bit more neutral is a better way of looking at it. But at that point, no, we're not clipping. I thought we'd be clipping. We've got room to clip. Fine. but a slight bit more clarity in the water itself without the background is probably what we want to do with this image. In fact, we also, I imagine, even as I look at it, this kind of a crop is probably what we want to do to simplify it even further, right? And there we go. That is to me a stronger image than what we started with. Just too much stuff. It's too blue. You got a straight horizon, which is the main thing. And then I would go again in just using the camera raw filter. I'm just going to do it very quickly with a radial gradient, but I'd be going in here and me personally trying to add a little bit more texture in there. So whether it's just contrast, which will get you half the way there, or using texture and clarity just to make it a bit more interesting, basically. You can brush this in as opposed to just dump it on like that. But that's what I'd be doing for this image. But as an image, you've got one subject. It's quite an obvious subject, and I'm not sure. I think you can work on it. Is the answer to that question. Cool. Dave is saying not seeing the image on YouTube, just yourself. Well, that's not ideal. I'll just switch this scene. Let me know, Dave, if you can now see the image, because me talking about an image without you seeing it on the screen is obviously not ideal. And with that, let me know in the chat if that's fixed it. If not, we will do some mid live stream troubleshooting. But yeah, otherwise I'll just crack on. This is not this is like not dissimilar feedback to the last image, in that there's a lot of stuff going on. Cheers, Dave. I appreciate your the note that everything's back on track. I almost want these hot. Let's throw it to Photoshop, because the cardinal sin has been committed. First off, we've got a wonky horizon, right? And we're going to have to crop into the heck into it just to fix the horizon. So the cardinal sin, wonky horizon, resolved. This is a good example of a black and white photo, though, that has lots of tones within the image. You got almost black, if not black, some grays, lighter grays, up to light grays at the top. Whenever I'm doing black and white photography, which is not very rare, and I'm certainly no expert, don't have expertise in black and white specifically, but that's what I'm looking for in an image. So now when I look at this, very conveniently, I think we can crop. I was going to say I want to get rid of some of the sky, because the sky's not doing us any favors. But obviously, as soon as we do that, we start to lose these horses on the side. So we're getting a little bit closer with that. But the main issue is there's no consistency throughout the image as to where we're supposed to be looking, and our eyes are going to. And then it kind of gets lost in the background here, and I then lose interest in the image. So what I would have done is waited for these two horses, if possible, to be more towards the center of the frame here. You'd have then had this line of contrast coming through the horses. Perhaps my eye goes to the top of this mound, then goes across back to the houses, and we built this loop. We've built a process. We've tricked the viewer's eye into being in the image for longer. And if there was a mathematical or scientific way to calculate how good an image is, especially at first glance, without getting into the nuances of any metaphors or story or anything within the image, it would probably be, how long do I look at it for? And right now, again, I see these two characters, I shoot across, I see some sand, I see a wall maybe, which is kind of interesting, and then my eye disappears. So that is what I'd be thinking about with this image. First off, Steve, get the horizon straight. Even if this, we can perhaps forgive you that this hill here is wonky. That could just be how it is, but it's really obvious with the sea, the horizon of the sea or the river or the lake or whatever that is there. Cool. We'll run through a couple more. Oh, I'm going to butcher your name, my friend, but Pygarian, Mr. Knox. This is nice. I feel like there's a couple of trees here. There's one here. You basically, I would increase the darks. The foreground is fine. We can always nitpick the smaller things here. Obviously, it would be nice if there's a few more trees or there's something more to it. But otherwise, fine. And you've done the right thing. I think you've removed something down here as well. That looks a bit suspect to me. But you've done the right thing in that there is atmospheric haze affecting the image to give it some depth. And we've got the perspective of the trees getting, especially these trees in the background, getting smaller and smaller. So we get sucked into the image. It is deep. There's a 3D effect to it, which is cool. But I just feel like from a processing perspective, and if I throw this into Lightroom, there won't be any data there because it's already blocky from its upload to Facebook, and there's a lack of detail around these trees. The original raw image could be really sharp. I can't really tell from this side. But I would just want to add, especially in this bit in the front mid-ground, just a little bit more contrast or detail or something, and then maybe even exaggerate the atmospheric effect going backwards from that point. But you're just kind of missing a tree, sheep, tractor, group of pigs. I don't know, something in just the lower middle of the frame there, just so my eye goes on something. Because what my eye does is shoots in from the bottom right corner, which is perfect, follows his lines, sees a bunch of shadow, goes, okay, where am I supposed to be going, and then goes out the image. So you're kind of missing just a little bit of subject as well. But Mr. Knox, cool conditions, cool location. It's interesting to see these kind of rolling, not quite hills, these rolling lumps just disappearing with no like mountains in the background. I think it's quite cool. Right, Eugene, the legend is Eugene. This is nice. I think this is just. I think this doesn't quite work in the bottom corner. So maybe it's a case of the problem with mountain photography is I am going to suggest that you stand 10 meters to the left, and that might drop you off a cliff. So that might not be in practically ideal advice. But if possible, further to the left, so that this part, the valley is just shifted over from the perspective that we're shooting in. We'd get rid of these rocks down here as well from the frame. And then you just shoot it 3 hours earlier. I think I've said this to you before, Eugene. You've got quite a lot of lovely locations. I don't know where you live. I don't know if this is this could be like the Alps or something, or maybe this is Canada. Don't know. It's epic, whatever it is. I've literally never been to a location that is as epic as this. So you did a great job from that perspective. You just need this with a big sunrise in the top left hand corner, and that would do all this justice and all this credit. And sometimes, obviously, it's easier said than done to get out for these kind of conditions. Just access to some of these places, as I've not been to these, but access. I've read that access to these places can be a bit of a pain in the ass when you try and get up super early or super late. But Eugene, I'm very jealous of wherever you live or the travels that you do. Cool, Scott. Okay, so I hate the border, but it's an interesting image. Is this some kind of like film shenanigans? If not, it's obviously some crazy heavy filter that you've added in Lightroom or Photoshop. It's nice. Bit of texture. It looks very gothic and moody. Almost reminds me of like a stained glass window. But you get rid of the border. I hate borders like this. It doesn't do anyone any favors. It just reminds me of like filters that you'd put on photographs like 20 years ago when I was 15, putting together my first ever kind of edits in Photoshop and just faffing around with it as a tool. for the graphic design work and website work that I used to do as a kid. But yeah, no, the premise of the image behind this terrible board is quite cool. So I appreciate you sharing, Scott. Edson Fortzella in Brazil. I personally would go through and clone out all these people. That's the first thing I would do. Secondly, I would have shot it 10. If this is a sunrise, I would have shot it 10 minutes earlier. Oh no, because I quite like the sun on the foreground. Let's throw it in Photoshop. Let's see if there's any tweaks we can do here. The main problem is it's quite wide, and there's not a lot going on in the sky. It's not a terrible sky in that you've got almost a pattern of the small cloud, the big cloud. I just feel like you tried to get too much in there, and by putting too much in there, you've you just lost a little something. But we can't crop it too hard because we want this leading line coming and sweeping through. Like I would rather cut off the cloud and have more of the scene. I don't know how to describe it, like popping almost. I don't think the clouds are the important parts of this. I think this sweeping line and then the sunrise or sunset is. Nah, that doesn't work either. But yeah, there's definitely a slight crop here or a way to shoot this differently. Maybe it's a slightly thinner crop. Yeah, maybe it's just the aspect ratio. So I don't know if you shot this on some fancy GFX or something. Yeah, it's definitely we can definitely do more about it, more than that. This cloud is the gap at the top there as well is it just doesn't need to be there. So then we're now in the realm of how do we pull colors from this? So we've blown out the reds. That's fine. The sun is pretty warm. Hot. I'll be seeing if a bit of negative dehaze just adds a bit of glow. So this is where it gets subtle, right? Hopefully you can see that. But this little subtle glow just touching the top of these buildings, that's often for me the thing that just adds a little bit of something to these photos. It's almost like a little bit of interest to your where there's a level of right. That to me makes a massive difference. Now be more of a key part of the composition itself. So I'm probably willing to get rid of a little bit more. There we go. I think that's now more of a crop. But yeah, I'd get rid of these people. And then something that works quite well, I found on waves with a bit of light, is just do a linear print. And again, I want to draw the viewer's eye up towards that. So you've got the lovely light all over the place. But just a slight bit of dehaze. And I added a tiny bit of clarity. Just almost so like the sun is beaming down on that part of the frame itself. So again, hopefully you see this. I appreciate this is cropped. I appreciate this is compressed as it comes to me as an image, then goes out to you light the image in the first place. So yeah, maybe something like that. Maybe that's what we're looking for. That's a bit heavy-handed as I take a step back and look at it now. But that's what I'd be looking at with the image. So you've almost got this curving line. You've got the sun hitting the water. You've got the haze of the sun across these buildings. There's still quite a big of a gap here between the cloud, but then the cloud kind of finishes off the kind of curves of the viewer's eyes that goes through the image across there. Cool. Cool location though. I need to do more seascape or okay, what's this? Beachscape. Something I really need to do. I really enjoy looking at it, and I've never really done that much of it. So with that, let's look at one more image, then we'll wrap up, because as you can probably tell, my voice is starting to go. I don't want to butcher it too much. Cool. Here is a photo from Wes. Late summer misty sunrise. This is really nice. You've got a bit of pink here, which you could probably pull out. If you put that into Lightroom, select it, and just select that specific color, and then just up it, you probably get some nice pinks. I would. Right, fine. We've come this far. Let's get this in Lightroom. Let's see what we're doing with it. And the composition, it's a little bit heavy on that far side. I almost wonder, it's done it itself as I kind of pull it in there, but I just wonder if there's a crop like that as well. Maybe we need a bit more height on it. But is there a crop that just reduces the weight of that side of the image? Maybe I'll be looking at something more like that. And something that I do, which is a complete cheat, but can work really well, is if you got these light beams, you gotta get the right angle. If you get the right angle of them, just doing a little bit of negative dehaze just to emphasize them slightly. Again, you can go way too far with that pretty quickly. But yeah, some people don't like, especially when it's light. People are happy. Some people tend to be fine juggling colors, but as soon as there's light involved, you're just emphasizing the light that's already there by just increasing the strength of these light beams. People get a bit freaked out and weirded out. Cool. So from that, the color, I would say the color is slightly off. Probably looked more. It probably was more blue on the day from the look of things. I don't think it was a particularly golden shot just by looking at the histogram there. I'm just going to pull a little bit green out of it. It's just this should be more white. Down here could be more pink. So if we go to our color mixer, pick out these pinks, just increase the saturation of them slightly. So we're going to do that, and then I'm going to pull this back. Fine. No, I think it needs to be cooler, and then that'll make the pinks look more real. And then I'll just add a little bit of a layer down here, perhaps across both of these two sections, just to on a little bit more detail, just to again give it that depth of the image of again less and less detail as it moves forward. But yeah, quick edit, something like that is what I'd be aiming for. I'm still not happy with this. This should be more white than pink, I feel. But I would certainly emphasize these light beams coming in here and here. And but otherwise, cool image. I like it. Cool. Well, we'll wrap things up there. Thanks for that picture, Wes. So just to recap on what I said at the beginning of the live stream, just in case any of you have joined halfway through. As of tomorrow, there's going to be some rules in the group. We're going to pivot and really heavily double down onto landscape photos, the occasional wildlife photo, outdoor photography is what we're aiming for, but really specifically landscape photos. We're doing that across the Facebook group. We're doing that across our YouTube channel. The emails that go out if you're on a newsletter list, everything's now getting pivoted way more focused towards landscape photography. Why? Because that's what I enjoy doing. It's what I'm best at, what I spend most of my time doing. And so for me to offer the most value, there's no point in me rabbiting on about things with wildlife or street photography that I don't know anything about. So that's why we're making this pivot. So I add these rules to the group. So next time you check out the group, it'll probably pop up on the screen, the rules themselves. And with that, again, I could just say my email here. We've had another sign up in the meantime. So if you want to come and work with me in a small, intimate group setting remotely, so 6 weeks, 6 classes, live classes, 6 Q&A sessions. And there's only 1 or 2 spaces left. Check it out over at photographyexplained.com/mastery, or there'll be a link below this video, around this video, left of this video, above this video, below this video. Training, do jump into it.